and welcome to Behind the Beacon, an in-depth examination and conversation of all of the things that keep the Bucks County Beacon vibrant and happening behind the scenes, the news behind the news, if you will. I'm your host, Daralyse, Lyons, Chief Revenue Officer at the Bucks County Beacon, joined by your other host, co-host, Emily Smith, publisher and owner. Emily, I'm so glad that we're putting this episode out on April 9th, Local News Day.
Yes. I'm excited for this podcast too. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, me too. And I've been so excited to join the Beacon's team. And the Beacon turns 5 this year. So for people who are new to us, I'm still relatively new. I just joined in October 2025, joined the staff. So can you give a little bit of a brief background on how the Beacon came to be and how we got here in the last few years?
Yeah. I think it's funny because I've told this story a number of different times, a number of different ways throughout the years. It's a long and winding road where I started off. I was a real estate agent before the pandemic, and now I own a news website, which shocks most people. I was working for a PR company with Ben Waxman, and we had a client who was interested in changing politics in Bucks County. And we were interested in filling the local news gap because it was very clear when we started thinking about it that there wasn't a lot of actual reporting, investigative or otherwise, happening in Bucks County in terms of government and politics. What we saw was stories about Brian Fitzpatrick that were very clearly press releases, just spun back out into news stories. And I did lots of research in the beginning. I came from a small business background and startups. So I did all of the market research to see, who was out there and what was out there. And most of it was, if it bleeds, it leads. It was car crashes, DUIs, the weather.
Right, yeah.
And there wasn't much of other stuff out there. Every once in a while you'd see articles from Tom Sofield at Levittown Now or at the Herald where there would be a more in-depth story. Sometimes Bucks County Courier-Times would have something, but usually not. So what we realized was that the local news scene in Bucks County had been decimated, and we wanted to fill the gap. So we ideated this in January of 2021. So it has been 5 years since I started on this project. Right around this time, 5 years ago, I was working on the business plan and all of the market research, and I had just begun to build our first website, the sample website. And we hired our first editor in July of 2021 and put out our first story. I believe I started publishing stories that were just reprints from other places where there would be a little explanation of the article that we found somewhere else. But through that process, we found that we needed to do our own reporting because there wasn't enough out there to cover anything.
Right.
So Joey Sweeney was our first editor. He was with us for a couple months. It wasn't a good fit. And then Linda Lee became our second editor. And she actually got us our first great coverage, which was election-related coverage about fake petitions. And right around the same time so Linda came in and she was doing some reporting. And then I asked Cyril, who is our current editor-in-chief, he had been writing a column for the Courier-Times as the counterpoint to everything at the Courier-Times.
Right. Which kudos to them for doing that. Kudos to them for having someone be a voice of agitation within the ranks, right?
I mean, if you ask Cyril's side of it, he had been a thorn in their side for some time, and they finally just were like, fine. Just write whatever you want. We'll put you in once a month. And so I didn't think we could actually get him to come work for us, but he was like, absolutely, I would love to.
That's great.
And we were brand new. We were babies. And so Cyril came on as a columnist. And within a month, I was like, can you just be our editor? And he knew all of these writers in
Yes.
Bucks County, and he was like, "I have this plan. Here's how I want to do it." And all of a sudden, we went from having 1 or 2 writers to having like 20, which was incredible. And that's where it really took off. And we gained some notoriety through this one writer, Jenny Cohn, who's an election
Yes.
integrity researcher, expert. She actually just put something out for us recently. And yeah, we have been growing since then. So that was, we really started to hit the ground running in 2022. And our numbers have doubled
Yeah. Yeah.
for years.
Well, and I mean, I think it's so important that you're referencing election issues and political issues. And I know that the Beacon, our coverage editorially it's so much broader than that. And we can talk a little bit about the expansion of, of our topics and what is important in the issues that we dig into. But Bucks County is referred to by some as the swingiest county and the swingiest state. I mean, it is a issue of interest not just within Pennsylvania, but across the nation and even across the world. I mean, I think Bucks County has successfully predicted election outcomes, and I don't remember how many of the last elections, but it's been many, many, many elections. And so I think just what you're speaking to is the importance of this scrappy little startup and shining a light on issues that were going underreported that are not just important to the Bucks County community, which is essential to us and where our hearts lie, but has a national, if not a global impact. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would say that timing, when we started, timing is everything. And when we started, it was the pandemic had been, happening,
Yeah.
and all of the mask mandates had been happening, and the rise of Moms for Liberty had been happening because of the mask mandates and closed schools and all of that stuff. So, like, for us, that timing, we started covering these things pretty in depth because there were crazy things happening at school boards,
Yeah.
and there just wasn't enough coverage of it. But what we found out through that process is that the same thing was happening in communities all over the country
Yeah.
because, of course, Moms for Liberty is like a brainchild of the Heritage Foundation, and they had a playbook and they were giving it out on the internet for anyone that wanted to start their own chapter, and they told them exactly what to do.
Well, and you
So
say, of course, but these were things that weren't being reported on with depth
Mhm.
and breadth. And so, you know, a lot of people, I think that things are happening in silos. They don't know why school boards are changing their tunes. They don't understand why these,
Until
well-meaning
it's too
moms or
late.
seemingly right, like soccer moms are coming in and making a difference that maybe feels innocent or innocuous early on, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, how come these books are being banned? Wait a minute, how come my kids are being taught that these like widely recognized principles don't apply or whatever? So I think that the role of an organization like the Beacon at this time in illuminating some of the behind the scenes, issues is not just important, but pivotal, essential. Like it wouldn't be, and of course, people wouldn't know that if it weren't for reporting, like from
Right.
organizations.
And I think that one of the things that I have strived to do is to try to really bring out the local as national. Things that are happening locally we're a microcosm of what's happening in towns across America.
Yes,
So I think that that is the most effective thing we can do because people in other counties can read our articles and be like, "Well, that's happening where I am too. What is going on?"
right.
Which is why we have a much larger national audience than one would expect when we're covering local school board issues.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, because we illuminate issues in an in-depth way. So I think these issues are happening everywhere, and yet the stories aren't being told. And I think I want to talk a little bit about this. This is coming out on April 9th, which is local news day. And I know that overall trust in international news is at an all-time low. Trust in national news has also plummeted, I think in large part because of the fake news campaign and propaganda. But local news does still have a lot of teeth, and overwhelmingly studies show that people do trust their local news in a way that maybe they might not trust national news or international news. So, I can tell some stories about some of the feedback I've gotten from community members about the impact of the beacon. I mean, I've gotten personal emails when I onboarded and I sent an email out introducing myself to the community. People reached out and they said, thank you so much. We are so grateful for the work that the beacon does. And I heard stories from, a Black woman who grew up in Bucks County who talked about issues that she faced in the 1950s that she feels like, students are facing now in terms of the disparate educational outcomes on the basis of race. And she's like, thank you for telling those stories. Our work was cited on MSNBC. Like, I mean, the Sheriff Fred Horan, like that, the work that the Beacon did exposing his deputization of ICE agents. I mean, like people overwhelmingly have said to me, and I'm just on the revenue side, I'm not in charge of editorial, but like, thank you. This work is making an impact, or, and we want more, we want more school board coverage. We want more ICE updates. We want to know more about local political coverage. And, I think that's one of the reasons the election guide did so well, was because the Beacon has done a really good job covering comprehensive issues that, like shining light on, these are the candidates running for all of these offices, and here is what they stand for, and these are their policies. And I personally couldn't really find that anywhere else. It's one of the reasons I joined the Beacon.
Yeah. I mean, that voter guide that was a lot to put together. I don't think people fully grasp how difficult it is to look up information on 379 candidates.
And
Especially
well-researched information. So you're not just like going into ChatGPT or something,
right.
having it spit out some may or may not be factually accurate information, right? Like you did
Yes,
that.
one of our researchers has a PhD
Yes,
in
yeah,
history.
yes, yeah,
So
yeah,
he is a pretty good researcher. But the crazy part is the elections are so local.
yeah,
It's like literally your neighbors next door.
yes,
And how do you know? And I think that is something that has been so lost without the depth of local news that used to exist. I think it's really important to be able to cover things at that level.
yeah, yeah. Well, and you said, people don't understand how much goes into researching 300 plus candidates, but I think one of the reasons I was really excited, Emily, to sit down with you and to continue sitting down with you for these behind the beacon conversations, is to give people a sense of not just the scope of the editorial work that we do, but like what it takes to run an online news site that is doing in-depth reporting that pays its freelancers, a competitive
More than competitive.
amount, right? And its staff a livable wage. I mean, it's like the Beacon is a $400,000 a year organization. And I think when you started, it really was with a focus on the editorial side of things. And now we're moving more into a sustainability and growth mindset. And so can you talk a little bit about, yeah, like just give people a peek behind the curtain at what it takes to keep an organization like the Beacon running?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, first of all, when we started, yes, most dollars went straight to editorial. And that, has continued to be the case because we want to put out really good stories because that's what
Yes.
we're built on. A note on paying competitive wages to journalists. As someone who came from freelance design,
Yeah.
corporate America, journalists don't get paid enough money
Right.
at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
at all. When I found out how much some of these journalists are making, I was shocked. I think it is a crying shame how much journalists get paid.
It is. And especially, I mean, the decimation of local newsrooms and people moving from a salary model to working like as freelancers and then being responsible for their own travel costs and their own research time and their own, benefits, et cetera. Yes, I actually had, I don't know how much people know about me, maybe nothing, but my background is that I have worked in finance for a little over a decade. And then I became a journalist, a freelance journalist. I worked with a number of newsrooms throughout the city of Philadelphia. And then I realized that, oh yes, if I want to support myself and my family, maybe journalism isn't the way to go. And I transitioned to the business side of journalism and became a publisher and executive director of a local news organization, and then came to work for the Beacon because I was really excited to be able to support the business infrastructure to keep the kind of journalism that I believe in going and thriving, because it is so important. And without, holding public officials accountable, without journalists in the room, corruption proliferates, organizations aren't held accountable, everyday citizens don't have the information that they need to inform their votes. And so that's my background, is like, was a finance person, was a journalist, and now am doing the work that I do on the revenue side for the Beacon, because I want to see this organization not just continue, but expand and grow so that we can do more of the amazing work that Cyril and others on the editorial side are doing.
Yes. Yes, I agree. So more about what it takes to run the Beacon.
Yeah.
It takes money. We spend, I think our run rate right now is $25,000 a month.
Yeah.
Approximately, it might be 30. It's somewhere between 25 and $30,000 a month, which is no small amount,
Well, but also, I mean, we've got 35,000 plus readers per month. So if
Yeah.
everybody gave $1 a month, I mean, we would easily have a
Yes.
profit each month. So
Yes.
it's not an insignificant amount of money, but the fact that we're not paywalled and intend to remain free to those who come to visit our news site, et cetera, like it wouldn't take much, I think, for those who benefit from the work the Beacon does
Yeah.
to keep the,
Yeah.
the lights on, so to speak.
Yes. I have been saying that for a couple years now, that it just takes, if everyone that reads it gave us $1 a month, we'd be golden.
Right. Right. We just want to say, if you're listening to this or watching this or whatever, to stop at $1. But like, I think most people could afford at least $1 a month.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But the interesting part about it is that the conversion rate, like us on the operations side, we talk about conversion rates a lot.
Yeah.
And the conversion rates for getting people to give us money towards the work that we do is in the less than 5, less than 2%.
Well, yeah, and that tracks with statistics. I mean, I think it's over 85% of people see the value in local news, but less than 15% of people donate to a local
Yeah.
news organization. And that's a generous estimate. So I think that it's, it's not saying that people aren't wanting to support local news, but I think with the rise of social media and people getting information off of Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, or X now, or whatever else, TikTok, I think people aren't really used to understanding the monetization model of local news and don't really understand it. We're a for-profit newsroom, but we have multiple sources of revenue. We have advertising dollars, we have individual contributors, we have sort of reader revenue, people who make ongoing small dollar donations, and then we have some grant revenue, but none of that is overwhelming or astronomical. And we need more advertisers to reach our readers. We want more, of our readers to contribute and to have stakes, to have skin in the game, so to
And I
speak.
think
And then, yeah, go ahead.
I think it's interesting that you brought up like the social media and how that has changed the landscape, because
Yeah.
the problem is on our side, we have to pay someone to go put our news in all of those places, because otherwise it wouldn't get read,
Well, and otherwise, all that would be on social media would be not researched,
Real news.
reported, and news. Yeah, information. I mean, I know a lot of content creators are actually using real news to do, to give information to their audience. And a lot of them, the more reputable ones, will cite their sources and will sort of refer people to go and, check them
Some
out
of
for
them
more
will.
information. What?
Some of them will.
I know. Yeah, I said the more reputable ones, but yeah.
We had like our big story on Sheriff Fred Haran got on a creator's website and then on the other 98%, which is a Facebook page for like
Yes. Yeah.
Democrats and
Yeah.
whatever. And we are nowhere in the information, even though it's our title, our picture, like all the our story, and we are not mentioned,
I know.
and it
Although
went.
we did get a mention from Moms for Liberty, which was we got a shout out from them, which thank you, Moms for Liberty, even though they
We've
weren't
grown up with Moms for Liberty.
complimentary. Yeah, yeah, right, right.
We are the yin to their yang. So they have been mentioning us for years because we have been mentioning them for years. I'm
Yeah.
sure it will continue
Well,
until.
I was speaking to a community member not too long ago, and this was their assertion. I'm just quoting. I'm not going to tell you who said it to me, but someone in the community said to me, well, every Democrat in Bucks County knows about the Bucks County Beacon, which I'm not so sure if that's true, but it did make me
It's not.
feel really, really good. I think that they may have meant like every person in Democratic office or every person in a prominent Democratic role knows about the Bucks County
Yeah.
Beacon. But I think people on both sides of the political aisle, or maybe I should say all sides, because there is a spectrum and a range to
Yeah.
political beliefs, should know about the Beacon because we do rigorous reporting, and that is, there's not a lot out there that is, rigorous reporting because of some of the structural problems and the defunding of journalism. And, I mean, it's really hard for working journalists to take the time that they need to produce the kind of story that the Beacon produces, which has, is well researched and cites sources and, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there are a couple great organizations across Pennsylvania
Yeah.
that are, putting out rigorous journalism covering politics and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spotlight does a great job. There are some really good ones out there, but they can't all be everywhere. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think
No.
that's the key is that like local news needs to be local.
Right, right, yeah. Well,
And
and I
so,
come from Philadelphia, which has like amazing news coverage and news organizations and does a lot of collaborative journalism, which
yeah,
enables organizations to pool their resources. I think about like the Philadelphia Citizen or Technically or Word Radio or some of the organizations, UHYY, some of the organizations that I've worked with in the past, the Philadelphia Journalism Collaborative, and a lot of how they're able to sort of do some of the more high impact work that they do is through some strategic collaborations. And I know the Beacon has been doing more of that recently.
yes.
There was an article that came out that was a collaboration between Technically and the Bucks County Beacon. I know our Naomi Watts, who was an intern for us, paired with Sarah Huffman, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Technically, and they really, I mean, they dug deeper than either organization would have been able to with our own resources, and I'm excited about that work and about being able to
Yes.
reach their audience and them being able to reach our audience.
Yeah, and I think that through the course of going to conferences
Yeah.
that are all about local journalism, you learn more about how to make it work. And one of the biggest things I've been learning in the last couple years is about collaboration. So I definitely was like, we need to be doing this more,
Yes, yeah.
So I'm so happy that it's happening and that we are really embracing working with other organizations because it really does, raise all ships. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Yes, yeah.
so yeah, I think we have another one coming out from Grist, but with Grist, and I don't know much about it. Grist is an environmental publication, and yeah, hopefully lots more to come.
There will be lots more to come. I mean, we recently got funding for another collaborative project with Technically and Dos Puntos, which is a Philly-based organization that reaches a Spanish-speaking audience. So I think that once those articles come out, there will be two of them, and they will be both in English and Spanish, which is there's a huge Spanish-speaking population in Bucks County that is underserved by news organizations. So yeah, I think stay
And
tuned.
growing.
Yeah.
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 Underserved and growing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. But speaking of a rising tide rises all ships and collaboration and things
Yeah.
that are happening. One of the things I'm really excited about is the Report for America grant that we received. We were
Yeah.
notified at the end of last year, 2025, that we got funding for to subsidize half of the salary of a Report for America corpse reporter. And that person will be starting with the organization in July. And so we're going to have a dedicated education news beat reporter. We are responsible, I am responsible. So the stress is mounting for raising the other half of that person's salary and then their benefits, et cetera. And we've seen our education coverage has made a significant impact. I mean, Emily, you talked about the coverage of Moms for Liberty. The recent article that was a collaboration with Technically looked at AI in the classroom and the different policies that Bucks County school districts are taking about AI and utilizing AI or sort of I guess dealing with
Yeah.
AI in the classroom for students. And so it's so important to be covering what is happening in education in Bucks
Yeah.
County, in particular lower Bucks. I know when writing the grant proposal, I was looking at the underfunding of a lot of different schools in the school districts in lower Bucks and the impact that it's having on underserved communities and under-resourced communities. And so that's something where I would love for those watching this, listening to this, to think about supporting the Beacon in a financial way, whether that be giving to our Report for America fundraising efforts or just giving to general operating expenses. Because again, $10 a month or a one-time $200 donation or something like that actually really does make a difference at an organization that is community driven and community supported.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very excited about the Report for America reporter. I'm so glad that we have this opportunity. But I think it is worth mentioning that every time we expand coverage, we expand our budget.
We do. Yes. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is the thing that gets me. Every day I stress out because I'm like, oh, it's so great we have this, but now it costs more money. And I don't think people really fully gather how much every single initiative, every single article, every single thing that we're doing is more dollars that we're spending so that we can, you know, better serve the community with our
Oh, yeah.
journalism.
Yeah, yeah. We are lowering your life expectancy by the day, Emily, with
I
every
know.
every expansion opportunity. But I think that I mean 2.5 newspapers across the country were closing every week. I mean, that was a relatively recent statistic. I think it was a few years ago. And so digital news organizations are filling a critical role, but also digital news organizations can't remain relevant or sustainable without funding, because I think that the funding is what enables us to actually do rigorous journalism. I mean, there's news sites out there that can just repost press releases or whatever, and I'm sure that it's better to have some information than no information, but that's not the kind of work that we're interested in doing. We want to actually inform the community. And some of the meetings that I've been having with community members have led us to even more questions that I'll bring to Cyril and say, well, what is the money trail on this particular initiative? Or I know we did a recent series of articles about data centers and a lot of people feeling like, oh, data centers are such a great thing and maybe they're going to create more jobs, than people thinking like, well, what is the impact on the environment and what is happening with AI? And so I think that the more that we dig, the more we find other avenues for exploration, and all of that takes money to be able to do justice to, to create the content and then also support all of the engines that make that content available to people. So like your work on the website, or CJ, who does all of our social media and designs many of our ads and that kind of thing, like supports the funding of that position, which is a position that people aren't aware of. But without someone doing the marketing and spreading the word, we would just be a website. And then how would people find out about us?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty funny. I would say we were 2 years into the Beacon, and I didn't yet own it. I was just the publisher. Just the publisher.
Yeah, right.
I was just the publisher, and someone that I had hired for revenue previously was like, we should get all the writers together so they can get to know each other and whatever. And I was like, great idea. So we go there and she's introducing me to the writers, and she's like, this is Emily, our publisher. And they go, we have a publisher?
Yeah, right. We do have a publisher, and she
We
does
do.
so much thankless and behind the scenes work that is incredibly valuable. And so, speaking of ownership, though, I know technically, Emily, you are the owner of the Beacon, but I think really like we work for the community and we're supported
Yeah.
by the community and we're responsible to the community. And so, for anyone who sees the value in the Beacon, please be sure to support us. And what that would look like is going to buckscountybeacon.com. You can do buckscountybeacon.com/contribute and make a donation, or go to buckscountybeacon.com and click on the support the Beacon button and make a donation. You can reach out to us directly. Both of our information is on the About Us page on buckscountybeacon.com, About Us, and you can reach out with questions. Like some people who want to make a donation or a contribution want to earmark that contribution for something. Like, I'd love to give to the Report for America effort, or I really want to see, I love the education reporting that you're doing, or I love the work that you're doing on data and AI or homelessness or any of the many things that we do. Like, reach out, ask us questions about how you can get involved, because we really are community based and community oriented, and we're going to be having more events this year too. June 2nd, there's going to be a panel discussion and collaboration event that we'll make more information available about that in the coming weeks and months. But we're going to be talking about like civic engagement and inviting everyone from our community and our collaborators communities to like come out and have a discussion with us about civic engagement and the Bucks County community and what you as a citizen can do and what you should be aware of. And so I think like I really see our work as serving the community and being responsible to them. And I think to that end, like, the community members that see the value in the Beacon can contribute to us and really like be in a constant conversation and symbiosis.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I am very passionate about civic engagement.
Yes.
I am a former elected of my local community, and the only reason I am not now is because I own the Beacon.
That's your civic engagement though, is
Yes,
doing this
yes,
work, which is a full-time job. Yeah.
yes.
Right.
And I think it's the thing that I learned being an elected. I was a borough council vice president. And the thing that I learned through that process was how much I didn't know. And I am a very well informed, very
Yeah.
civically engaged
Yeah.
member of the community. And I found out how much I didn't know. And then I found out how much most people don't know, you know, and
Yeah.
I think it's really important to just, have community members understand what is involved in running a government
Yeah.
on the local level, because I say this all the time, but I don't think you can say it too much. The elections that matter the most and the elected officials that matter the most are the ones in your municipality,
Right. Yes.
because they affect your daily life more than anyone else.
Yeah. Right.
It it the president can affect your daily life, the governor can affect your daily life, but the The deep down ones that really affect your life are your local elected officials because they're making the decisions about how much your trash costs, you
Oh
know?
yeah, yeah, and the potholes in your
Yeah.
street, and whether or not your school is open or closed, or the books, or whether student lunches are subsidized or not,
Right.
or yeah, access to certain parks and beaches, and yes, so
Yeah.
well, and I think, I mean, on a very small microcosm of the macrocosm, I think that's one of the reasons that we created this podcast, is because we want to be as transparent as possible about our own organization, in the same way that we are looking into other organizations and
Yeah.
officials, et cetera, and digging in, right? It's like we don't have any secrets here at the Beacon. So if there are things that you who are watching this or listening to this are curious about us, like write into me, write into Emily with your questions,
Yeah.
and we will talk about them on the air. Like if you're like, okay, $400,000, great. Where does that money
Yeah.
go? We'll tell you, if you want to know more about sort of our operational strategy, or our how we set editorial priorities, or anything, please, 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 I think the more we know what the community wants to know on the editorial side or the operational slash revenue side, the better equipped we're going to be to answer those questions, and to be as transparent as possible as an organization, and to make decisions that better serve our readers, right? Like if we think that readers are really interested, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons, Emily, that your background and your metrics and engagement work is really exciting to me, because we can tell which of our stories get the most traction and what things people want to know more about, but
Yeah.
nothing beats hearing from community members and readers themselves personally about why and what and how, the Beacon has made an impact in their life, and could do better. Like we're always open to constructive criticism and
Yeah.
feedback.
I think it's worth mentioning that we are building the plane while we're flying it. And also, yes, I don't even come from a journalism background, which is funny, but yeah, we're building the plane while we're flying it, but also the whole local journalism landscape and how to make it work and be sustainable is not a solved problem.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
it no one has come up with the perfect solution the whole way across the country and Canada, and I go to all these conferences and I talk to people and everyone's got ideas and certain things are working, but it's not like there's a formula for this that is known to work. There
No,
are
and it changes.
pieces.
It
Yeah.
changes too. I mean, years ago, advertising organizations were solely supported by advertising revenue, and
Yeah.
everybody looked in their local print newspaper to tell them where to go, where to shop, where to dine, all, et cetera, et cetera. And now people, advertising revenue does not support. I don't think there's a single newspaper in the country. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there is one that is solely supported by advertising revenue with no other income streams.
Yeah.
Then grant funding became the thing, and organizations were solely supported by grant funding. And then we saw
Right.
a lot of
Paywalls.
pulling back of,
Yeah.
yes, of grant funding from nonprofit organizations, and then it was individual funders. But what happens if someone passes away or changes their giving priorities, et cetera? And so, and newspapers used to be family businesses, and now a lot of them are being taken over by hedge funds. So even once you solve the Rubik's cube or whatever, like, there's a new problem to solve, a new thing to be
Yeah.
curious about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things I've learned through owning my own business for 20 years or something now, is that there always has to be something in the pipeline. And I'm sure that you would be good to talk to about this since you're our revenue person. But the thing that I've always understood is there can't be one revenue stream. There can
Yeah.
never be just one.
Yeah.
Because if you rely too heavily on one, you'll fail. You
Right.
always need a backup because things are always going to change. There's always going to be some new thing that happens, and then
Yeah.
that's not going to work anymore. So you always
Yeah.
have to have backup in a
Right.
million different
Absolutely. And I
directions.
think I see it as a sort of both and like, how can we serve the community at scale with the most massive impact? And then how can we be sustainable as an organization? And I think that the diversification of revenue does both of those things. Like, if we are having events, we are serving the community. And also in having events, then we have event sponsorships, which is a revenue source. If we have 35,000 to 80,000 visitors per month to our website, depending on the month and how traffic is being driven, like, then that is an opportunity to serve advertisers and also an opportunity to bring information to our readers about, hey, where can you shop? Where can you eat? What is happening in your community? What nonprofits can you go and support, right? And so that's like a win-win. I think a lot of the individual contributors who give to the Beacon feel like they are keeping the Bucks County community vibrant and informed and educated about information that is intensely relevant, not just to the Bucks County community, but to those individuals themselves who are like, we want this political information. We need it. We want to know what's happening in the school systems. We want to know what's happening with new businesses coming into this area and data centers and, everything from features to hard-hitting news. And so I think it really is, yes, we need diverse revenue sources, and I see the diverse revenue sources all as different streams of supporting and engaging with the community that we serve in a wide variety of ways so that we remain of value to them, relevant to them.
A community resource.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what, Emily, what's something that you would want people to take away from this, our very first episode Behind the Beacon on Local News Day? Like, what's something you want them to have learned or something you might want them to do after this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I hope you've learned that me and Dara exist, and it takes more to run a newspaper than an editor and some writers.
Yeah.
They are the ones with all the bylines, and we are behind the scenes doing so much other work.
That's true. We are quite literally behind the beacon.
Yes. Yes. So I would say that is the thing that I want you to have learned from watching this. And of course, it takes a lot of money to run this organization. So if you can support the Beacon, that would be awesome. Go to buckscountybeacon.com and click the Support the Beacon button.
Yeah, and I want to learn from you. Like, the thing that I really want to do is engage with more and more community members throughout Bucks County and across the nation and across the world, because again, we really do serve not just a local but a national and international audience. And so I would love to hear from as many people as possible about like what you love about the Beacon, why you support us, maybe why you don't support us yet, and what I can do personally to help you see the value in this organization, because all of the work that we do is community-based and relationship-based. So yes, please go to buckscountybeacon.com, click Support the Beacon, or if you don't want to click that button, go to buckscountybeacon.com, find my contact information on the About Us page, reach out to me and tell me what I can do to get you to take that next step and to be better at my job. Because again, we work for you. And I'm so grateful to anyone who stayed with us until the end of this very first episode on Local News Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this has been Behind the Beacon. Thank you again for joining us, and stay tuned for the next episode. We're so excited to be in conversation with you and with each other.
Yes, we are. Thanks, everybody.